this international exchange program that I started, and it's still actually in place at the school in Thailand. So I was really happy to kind of start my own legacy, and I'm lucky to have someone there who's willing to carry it on. Implement an international exchange program with a local international school, and it was so amazing because I got to take these students driving back was and the ride was really hard. I didn't expect it to be that way. But on the way back, I am dying! But I had so much fun. Hi, my name's DeEtta Cravens. I graduated from OCU in 2012. I triple majored in Spanish, political science, and philosophy, and I currently work at Pawnee Indian Health Center. And I'm currently working at Pawnee Indian Health Center and waiting for graduate school admissions decisions. So I'll be pursuing a master's degree in international affairs with a concentration in development. During my time at OCU, I studied abroad in Chile for 1 semester, and then I went abroad to Brazil as a Boren Scholar, and I was in Brazil for 8 months. And then I came back to OCU, I graduated, and the following fall I went abroad again to Thailand, and I was there for a year as a Fulbright English teaching assistant. So while I was at OCU, I was really preparing for all of these steps that I would take in pursuing international opportunities by pursuing international affairs coursework, for one, and also extracurricular activities in the OCU community and in Oklahoma City community at large. And I was working with a lot of my professors to build my resume and pursue opportunities that would strengthen my applications for these scholarships like the David Boren Scholarship and the Fulbright Scholarship. The Boren Scholarship is sponsored by the National Security Education Program, and it's kind of a unique program because the entire premise of it is to sponsor American students to go abroad and become proficient in a language that's deemed critical to U.S. national security. So my language, of course, was Portuguese, and I think that Portuguese is deemed critical because of the growing influence of Brazil in our hemisphere. I went abroad to Thailand as a Fulbright English teaching assistant, and the English teaching assistantship with Fulbright is a program designed to expose foreign students to American teachers, especially in developing countries or developing areas of foreign countries where access to English education is pretty slim. And so we utilize native speakers, American culture, and English language. The Boren Scholarship does carry with it a requirement to serve in the U.S. government, and it's at a federal level, which means that they sponsor you to go abroad and, learn this foreign language that's critical to U.S. national security, and then they expect you to pursue a career utilizing that language, or at least utilizing the skills you picked up during your time abroad. The primary agencies are the Department of Homeland Security, the State Department, Central Intelligence Agency, and the Department of Defense. They prefer that you go into one of those 4 agencies, but you're also open to the Department of Education, Department of Agriculture, USAID. There are several options for fulfilling your service requirement, but it is required that you fulfill your service requirement to the federal government for at least 2 years. The most important thing to remember when you're applying for fellowships for study abroad is that most often these applications are due a year before you would even leave the country. So that means you have to be thinking ahead. I'm a sophomore, but if I want to study abroad, I need to be thinking about that early and figuring out my application process way ahead of time. For example, I applied to go to Brazil while I was in Chile. I applied to go to Thailand while I was in Brazil. My application was due for the Fulbright in October 2011. I left for Thailand in October 2012. So there was quite a time commitment. The first step to applying to any fellowship, I think, should be research. What is the fellowship? What are the requirements? Where is it offered? In what countries? What is the purpose of this program? And so I encourage you to fully research the program and the fellowship. And from there, usually the application process starts online and includes several components. So you need to start reaching out to your resources, which are going to be your professors, academic affairs at your university. Mary Benner at Oklahoma City University is a great resource for you OCU students. Also, you can reach out to other fellows. Sometimes they have fellows listed online. You can reach out to people who have completed the program. So first step is to research, and this next step is to start asking people for help, because you think that not only will you need help through the application process, especially with recommendation letters and essay editing, but you should utilize the help that you have. It's really important, and it will strengthen your application. With a lot of fellowships, there are certain requirements. For example, the Bourne Scholarship requires that you do receive proficiency in the foreign language. So your primary focus while you're abroad should be learning the foreign language. With that being said, some of the best ways to learn a foreign language are to actually engage with the host community. And I did that in Brazil through a capoeira group, through surfing lessons. I was in a traditional Brazilian band. So there are many ways you can fulfill the requirements of a scholarship in your own unique ways. When I was in Thailand as a Fulbright ETA, the only requirement was that we teach at least 20 hours or up to 20 hours of English at our educational institution. But of course, if you only do what's required, your experience will be less than it could be. So when I was in Thailand, I volunteered at a shelter for human trafficking victims. I started an English club and a young guides tour club at my high school, and I also hosted weekly morning assemblies. So I really got involved with my school community and my village community because it enriched my experience. So some people ask me, well, how did you go from Brazil to Thailand? And I have to admit that my primary motivation in applying to Thailand specifically was I wanted to work with human trafficking victims, and I wanted to have that addition to the Fulbright program. I wanted to pursue that interest of mine. But my primary motivation in not applying to Brazil was that I had to apply during a time I was very uncomfortable in Brazil. With any program, you go through a period of adjustment when you're living in another country, especially when you're living in another country by yourself. So I was in that period of adjustment while I was applying for the Fulbright, and it just so happened that I thought, oh, I never want to come back to Brazil for like 2 weeks that I was applying, you know. So it happened that I applied for Thailand. Well, when I left Brazil, I couldn't really imagine going anywhere else, and I was so in love with Brazil, and I was actually really angry at myself for not applying for a Fulbright in Brazil. And then of course I got to Thailand, and I really didn't have that period of adjustment until about month 8, but I did have it. It never goes away, and it was about a month of adjusting. And then by the time I left Thailand, I thought, oh my goodness, how can I get back here? I need to find a way to come back here. So basically just remember that with any international experience, you're going to have a slight slope in your experience, but it will always come back up. And by the time you leave, I guarantee you'll feel like it's home, and you'll just try to figure out ways to get back there. My ultimate career goal is to be a Foreign Service Officer for the United States Department of State, but I first decided that the Foreign Service was my career of choice through a domestic opportunity, which was the Ringel Scholarship in Washington, D.C. So this is another scholarship. It's in Washington, D.C., and it's a summer program, and the State Department sponsors it, and they expose students to careers in international affairs. So I first discovered my passion for the Foreign Service domestically. And in order to build my resume and prepare for my future career, I then decided to go abroad and pursue international opportunities, because it's critical to my career that I have these opportunities and that I build the skills that you can really only acquire when you're living in a foreign country by yourself. When I was in Thailand as a Fulbright English teaching assistant, I taught English to high school students. And in addition to teaching English, I started an international exchange program. So there was this international school in a nearby city, and I asked several students from that school if they wanted to meet students from my school and just kind of have an informal English-speaking activity. So what we did was we rode we rode bikes to a nearby camp, what I thought was nearby. It was actually about 120 kilometers, but through the weekend we rode that much. But so we started this international exchange program, and I took 10 of my students to meet with 10 of their students, and we had a weekend of just like camp fun. And it was so incredible because it was the first time I really got to see my students outside of school, and that they just got to be themselves. And because they weren't speaking English for a grade or in front of Thai teachers, they just had so much fun with it, and they came to love it. And they formed these friendships with these international students, and it was so amazing. And on the ride back from the camp, it was so great because they said, "Teacher D, I'm dying, but I have so much fun." And so it was just a really great experience, and I'm so glad I had the opportunity. And we were even able to do it again the next semester. They begged me all semester, "Can we do it again? Can we do it again?" So I did take them again, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had abroad, because it was just me and my students, and me teaching my students through an international education opportunity, just like the ones that have impacted me so much.